Okay, what we're going to do today is look at Ansible. Um, Ansible is a pretty popular tool in the DevOps space or the even software engineering space for creating and managing a group of multiple hosts. They could be Linux hosts. There's also ways to run this with Windows hosts or nodes. But what we're going to do today is do a quick setup, um, uh, ping all the hosts, get Ansible up and running, and then go through the details of a quick playbook example. And I'll put a link to the playbook example in the blog post, which will be associated with the video. So we're going to try to go kind of quick, but essentially what Ansible allows you to do is you can have one host computer that then manages multiple subnodes. So you can see these various nodes here in the diagram. The documentation for Ansible is quite extensive. There's a lot you can do with it. We're just going to cover some of the quick basics. So what you need is you need one host with Ansible installed, and essentially that's it. You don't need to install an agent. It's completely agentless, which is one of the things that is really appealing about Ansible. At least it's agentless with Linux computers. They do need to have SSH running. This is the OpenSSH standard to then do all the communication between the nodes. So what we have is a very simple setup, and what I'm going to do is go through just some of the quick setup. This is a brand new bring up, so you can see it has, we're in the directory etc/Ansible. This is where Ansible sets up its default host and inventory files by default. You can see I just installed, so this is everything that's needed on Ubuntu or Ubuntu based. This is Linux Mint. And it takes about 55 megabytes of disk space. But then once you're up and running, you can start running some basic Ansible commands. So it can be a little bit daunting getting started with it, but we're going to focus on is just like some quick basics. And a lot of this is covered in the getting started guides in their documentation. So with Ansible, what you have here is there's an Ansible config file and there's a host file. The host directory, which gets created automatically on start, at least in Ubuntu-based systems, looks like this. So you can see everything's commented out. All of these pound signs in the front, these are comments. But it gives you some idea of what we need to add. What I'm going to add is a copy of my original host file. So this is from another Ansible node. So we have this open here. So same, just a text file. And what we're just going to do is we're going to just copy and paste all of this information in. So what this information is going to do is we're going to create a group or a fleet. We're going to tell it what the IP addresses or domain names are in this fleet. And we're going to update the variables so that we have this user who's a known user on the system and what the user's password is so that Ansible can then log in and do things. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do sudo, because we're in the etc directory, nano, which is my text editor of choice. Get the password. Then we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and we're going to do Control-Shift-V. So that'll allow us to paste directly into this file. Control-X, do we want to save? Yes, we do. We're going to keep the same name. And now what we can do is a couple of commands. First, we can, if we look at the first commands in Ansible, we can do things like show config. We can also, these commands are already getting a little bit complicated for this, but it shows you the type of detail and structure that you can go down into. But I think what we can do is Ansible all list hosts. So I got the syntax wrong. And we can see the host, so our file is applied correctly. We can do the ping command, and our group is called update test. And we're going to call the module, so it's -m and ping. And then we can wait for the servers to do a response. And then we get the correct response of the ping pong command. So that shows us that we can find out the status of all the hosts in our group, which is called update test. And just to show this while we're working, just do etc Ansible hosts. So we have here at the end these two hosts. And then we also have the password. So the password is important so that we can let the host connect. This I'll touch upon in just a moment, but this is essentially a workaround if you have an older version of Ansible. Now, what we can then do to sort of build upon this and make it a little bit more interesting, we go to Documents. Okay, we have this first playbook. So we're going to look at the first playbook that we have. And what the playbooks do in Ansible is it allows for some of the automation to actually take place. It's one of the most powerful things you can do in Ansible. But essentially what a playbook does is it lets you run tasks, and then these tasks you could then automate like on your host machine, like using something like cron. So like maybe at midnight at the end of the week you just want to update everything. If you want to do a quick touch, or if you want to like install packages, this can all be done with the playbook. I'm going to bring up real quickly. So when you create your first command in your first playbook, you want to well, yes, install Ansible, but they have this sample playbook, and this is essentially the same as what we're looking at here. So we have this name first playbook, and we're gathering the information, and we're getting this info. So in the sample that they have here, is the name is network getting started first playbook. They have a connection, so they're specifying which network it's running off of. This first playbook is not doing that. We're just working on the local network because the local network is what's available. And then they can do things like get the config, gather subset. These are all the things that they're doing in their example of the playbook. What we're doing is we're running the playbook. So we have the name of the playbook. We're telling it which host we want it to look at. We use this command, become true. This, what it does is it elevates the privileges in Ansible. So it essentially allows you to run with pseudo privileges. So when we run that, we're going to need to call a flag to do that. The short of it is that when you run the playbook, what we're going to do is run this, which is going to run the touch command. So we're just going to say touch, and we can actually change this first playbook. So rather than touch was here too, which has already been run from another host on this, we're going to make an update. So we're going to say apt update cache. This essentially runs similar, just like running a command of saying update or sudo apt update. This essentially does the same thing. And then we're going to install or check if OpenJDK is present on the devices. So we're going to run this, and to run, we can do Ansible playbook. We're going to call this flag K, and that's going to prompt for a password. It's the K is short for ask become password. and then we're going to run this first playbook YAML file. So when we get the password prompt, this sudo password is the password of the Linux host, or the host that we're managing. So we're going to type in that password, and then we're going to go through and it's going to do its first tasks. It's going to run through and everything gets automated and everything runs. So it's making an update. Okay, and then it shows you everything that was done. It says change to, so it made 2 changes. So making sure that the install JDK is done, leaving a mark. We can go in and see. So if we actually SSH into this host, this 192.168.123.140, and again provide the password. Just do an ls, and we can see this file which we just created. We just changed that in the playbook. That was indeed written. We can also run grep open JDK just to make sure that it got installed, and they are. So everything worked. Thank you very much.